My name is Tessa Rogers, and this is my accessibility evaluation for Module 5. The first classroom resource that I chose to evaluate for accessibility was my friction inquiry activity using Google Docs. And doing some research on the simulations that I used, I actually found that the friction simulation on PhET had 3 accessibility features built in. They had alternative input or keyboard navigation, so they're able to use the keyboard to navigate rather than the mouse. They also have sound and sonification, so students with vision impairments can experience the simulation, and interactive description, which provides a fully described interactive experience that is keyboard accessible, dynamically updates, and automatically responds to changes the user makes as they interact with the simulation. So all 3 of those accessibility features were included with the friction simulation. So on my end, I had to make some changes on my Google Doc here. The first one being the title itself. So I didn't have this marked off as the title, so I had to change it to the title. And then in turn, it renamed it up here for me, Friction Inquiry Activity, because that was a little wordy at first too. This was my subheading here, click on, or subtitle, I'm sorry. And then I added the description for the link so they would know that click on friction simulation would take them to the actual simulation. And then I also added with the image here a description, more detailed description of what it was with bullet points. And I said exactly where they could find it, what it looked like, where it was located in the right-hand corner, and that part is bolded for a reason so that it stands out. Then once I started the activity itself, I made sure that I had the headings correct. So I have part 1 engage as my heading 1. And interestingly enough, when I tested this out, originally I had the bullet points underneath my first question here and underneath all my questions as letters. It just is how I outlined them. But when it read it as if it sounded like it was a multiple choice answers that they could choose from in order to answer the question, and I didn't want it to sound like that, so I just changed them to a bullet point. I also changed the wording on this second bullet point here. Originally it was type your answer in the box below, but not all students are able to just type right on their keyboard. Some of them have to use that feature, which they are able to speak into the microphone and the computer types it up for them. So that I definitely changed, and I bolded certain parts under each section here to bring them kind of out and to the attention of the student. And then the last one that I did was I changed the order of my questions so that as they are working through the simulation, they're also just working through the page itself. So I wanted to make sure that the temperature was asked before the textbook was asked, and then I asked about the textbook because they would already have probably been there on their keyboard. And then I went back to the thermometer up here. And that was my first classroom resource. My second classroom resource was the student schedule that I shared weekly with my students to allow them to know when to log on and what we were doing at what times and such. So the first thing I noticed right off the bat was that I didn't have any titles to either of these columns to let them know what they were. And then I also noticed that the green, and I have red too, was maybe not so great against the white background, that it could cause somewhat of a contrast So I decided to change those. And then I thought there's way too much that I have here that they really didn't need to be having to listen or read through. So I definitely edited that down. So now we can look at my edited version here. I added headings. I changed the background and definitely changed the background of the times that they needed to join me on Google Meet for instruction. And I bolded the subject titles here, as well as some of the pages in the books that they have to make sure that they have open. And I also, in addition to that, I got rid of the whole time that they would have to be doing something. I just stuck with the start time so that they would just need to know like when it started. That was it. And then underneath each lesson description here, I tried to stick with as much as possible the materials that they needed and basically what we would be doing that day with those materials. I added links if there was a Google assignment on the schedule to help them navigate that easier. So an example would be these vocabulary slides assignment. I just have the reading classroom link right there, so they would be able to get right in from that screen, as well as farther down the social studies one. I did the same thing, so they're able to click right into that and get right to the assignment. I also thought that maybe a good idea for when we go through the schedule throughout the day might be to, because I give them a copy of this, to like black out or delete anything we've done so that it would keep them better on track with that. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your feedback.